I was blind, but now I see. A San Pedro trip report, posted by Bittersweet Blissful to earwid.org March 19th, 2010. I only had to read a few San Pedro experiences on Earwid to know that mescaline was the entheogen for me. I am 23 years old, and over the past 6 years, I've tried mushrooms 5 times, acid 2 times, and ecstasy around 100 times. In high school, I tried mushrooms and never got anything out of the experience. I ate them to get messed up, and didn't realise how psychedelic drugs could reveal such truth at the time. That was until I tried 3 tabs of acid for the first time in the summer of 2005 at college, and experienced a glimpse of the Godhead. All I needed was a glimpse, and ever since then, I've been fascinated by these different realities. I spent every day researching entheogens, reading experiences, reading studies, while immersing myself in the idea that I had possibly found the greatest thing on earth. Shortly thereafter, I had another opportunity to try acid, but it was not anything like the acid experience from before, the complete opposite actually. I was utterly let down. I felt like I had lost my passion for these drugs, and that what I had previously believed about their potential was completely off. I was depressed and gave up on all these wonderful substances. I threw out my idea of going to Peru for a spiritual quest. I passed up 2 chances to smoke DMT. I fell back into society and believed that these were nothing but drugs that had no spiritual purpose. And this was all about 3 years ago. As of 2 days ago now, I am now again a faithful believer in entheogens and their positive nature once again. Drunk one night last week, I ordered San Pedro from an online site. My boyfriend didn't even know what San Pedro was, or that it contained mescaline, and I had only learned of this 20 minutes previously, but without hesitation, we ordered 2 feet of the cactus to be shipped overnight for an extra $25. And the package arrived. The cuttings were beautiful, bright green, thick cacti. Although we ordered 2 12-inch arms, we had one 13-inch and one 14-inch arm. I was pleasantly surprised to say the least. We decided to skin them, put them into a food processor, spread the mush onto a few baking trays, and wait for the cactus mush to dry. We then put it back into the food processor, and took the powder from that and put it into these capsules to avoid the apparently horrible taste of the San Pedro. Well, we woke up early the next morning, around 8 AM, and found that the cactus mush did not dry overnight, but most of the water had evaporated. Because we were both so excited to trip, and because we had our minds set on that morning, we grabbed 2 spoons and began to spoon it into our mouths without chewing, while downing it with cranberry juice. The thick mush slid down our throats and we could feel it plop into our bellies. As long as it didn't touch your taste buds in the wrong spot, it wasn't really that bad. It took about 6 big spoonfuls each to finish the goop. We were finished eating the cactus in 5 minutes, and after reading other people's experiences of eating San Pedro, we were quite proud of ourselves. We set the timer on the oven for exactly 1 hour. We were hoping by then we would be tripping and could decide whether we wanted to spend the day at home around the city and at the city park up the street, or if we wanted to drive to Forest Park, a huge national forest with trails about a 10-minute drive from our house. We wanted to make sure we were okay to drive before we set out on that adventure to the forest. I got in the shower while my boyfriend listened to music and prepared himself for the trip. I got out, got dressed, lay down on the bed and waited for the trip to begin. My boyfriend came in the room and laid down with me. At this point we were both starting to feel a little sick. I grabbed the garbage from the kitchen and lay back down. We laid there through the timer and then through another hour timer. It had now been about 2.5 hours until we were over the sick feeling. We didn't once throw up. At this point I stood up and noticed the first effects of the mescaline. "It's totally working," I said to my boyfriend. "I told you we prepared it right." He got up and we both felt silly but very happy. Looking out the bedroom window, we both knew we needed to be outside. Everything outside was sparkling. The cars, the trees, the people. We walked through the park with our dog, and the park seemed so alive. I couldn't walk slow enough to take everything in. I felt like we were little kids again, and I had never been in this park before. Unlike the onset of acid or mushrooms, there was no confusion at all, just a twinge body high, and the world looked beautiful. When we got back to the house, it had been 3.5 hours since we'd eaten the cactus. Both my boyfriend and I thought that going to the forest park would be the ultimate trip setting. He assured me that it was okay to drive, and I trusted him completely. Era would note, driving while intoxicated, tripping, or extremely sleep deprived is dangerous and irresponsible because it endangers other people and yourself. Do not do it. I felt like I was floating while I walked around. I felt so incredibly light, and I couldn't wipe the grin off of my face. I was just in pure happiness. We got in the car, iPod in hand, and I knew exactly what to play. Dan Gibson's Solitudes. It was amazing. The sounds of the birds and rain, accompanied by the soft piano playing an indescribable melody, was awesome. My boyfriend started to drive, and all I could do was look out the window and fall in love with the world around me. As we drove out of the city and started to wind up the road to the forest, I realised it felt like hours since we left the house, but the clock told me it had only been 6 minutes, and at that moment, I realised I was beginning to trip even harder. I had a little moment of panic, knowing we were driving away from home and we were steadily tripping harder and harder, and we had no idea how hard we were going to trip. I thought to myself, what if we can't drive home and we're stuck in the forest? At this point, I did not like the idea of driving so far away from home, when I had no idea what mescaline was going to do to us. I just wanted to be home right now. I wanted to drive back home where it was safe. A second later, right before I blurted this out, something inside me said, there is no such thing as home in the conventional sense. We create home in order to feel safer, but there is no such thing as home. It made so much sense to me in that moment. I realised that as humans, we create home for no reason but to feel safe. And I felt as though I needed to let that go to experience what was about to take place. It was a false sense of safety, and I was not going to let myself feed into that. Once I got over not being home, I accepted that we were on our way to the forest to experience something great. Right when we got to the trailhead, which seemed like hours later, we got out, and I couldn't move. The sun was shining, and the trees were glistening, and everything just felt like a storybook. It was breathtaking. As we walked to the trail and started down, I felt as though we were guests and that the forest was inviting us in. At first, I felt like the forest was not sure about us being there, and they were not very friendly. I felt like we were trespassing into sacred territory, and I felt a little uneasy as I looked at the huge trees swaying in the wind. Every little plant, flower, tree, and bush looked so unbelievably alive. The further we went down the little dirt trail, the more I felt the presence of the forest. We came upon another trail that led off the main one. I didn't ever remember seeing this trail ever before. We started up it, and right in front of us were 4 big trees, facing us as if to greet us. They were the brightest colour of blue, and Chris agreed with me. They looked as if they were the king trees of this part of the forest. As I walked by, I placed my hand on one and it felt so amazingly orgasmic. I felt like I was truly connecting with them, and I told them that I loved them, and that I love the forest and nature, and how much they are underappreciated by our kind. At this point, the uneasiness lifted from my chest, and it was as if the whole forest rejoiced by our presence. I felt a very strong presence about the forest, as if they were aware of us, aware of humans, and their entity in a way that felt more powerful than any other species on Earth. We were the guests, and they made it known. I shed a tear, because of this overwhelming sense of guilt of what we have made of all the forests in the world, and they were definitely aware of what we have done. I wanted to touch every plant and feel its spirit and connect with every tree. I wanted to shout out how much I appreciated their beauty. They were more powerful than us in a way. It was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. As we walked out of the forest back to the car, I felt them calling for us to stay and enjoy each other, for we had both known the truth. Leaving was the hardest thing to do, but my boyfriend insisted we went home. The drive home must have been the most peaceful I have ever felt in my entire life. Why do we dwell on simple problems of everyday life? Why don't we see what really matters? Why is our reality so destructive and distant from the truth? Mescaline felt normal. The feeling I felt on the way home felt like what us humans should feel all the time. Why isn't this our exact reality? I felt so clear-headed, joyful and free, and yet full of knowledge that no one else seemed to know. We listened to some more Dan Gibson and drove home, floating in peaceful solitude. When we arrived home, we brought the iPod in and laid down in bed, still swirling in ecstasy. The sun shone through the window onto our naked bodies, and we embraced each other and made love for what seemed like the very first time. I felt like Adam and Eve. I imagined we were in a grass field surrounded by flowers and rivers. As we made love, I couldn't tell the difference between his soul and mine. We were truly one. We lay together for hours after, laughing the afternoon away. No worries, just pure bliss. Although I did not necessarily learn anything about myself, except that I'm confronted by the false existence of home, I did learn that we are not the most powerful on this earth. We are not the most wise, but perhaps the most blind. I will definitely be enjoying San Pedro in the future. I was just in love with the experience. Oh well, wasn't that a lovely little trip report? And yes, I'm finally featuring one that's just pure positivity. I know you guys have really been gagging for them. I'm sorry, I'm just addicted to making them absolutely crazy ones, and obviously they get the most traction as well. And as a content creator, you've got to keep creating, you've got to keep getting people engaged and engrossed. And yeah, I am sorry that sometimes lately I don't feature as many sort of unconventional substances. I keep focusing on like the main ones, the heavy dose reports, blah 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 blah. It's just because I was getting a bit bummed out, to be honest, with the lack of views. I'm sorry that I'm complaining right now. I don't mean to. I'm just getting it off my chest. Like I was just getting a bit bummed out with the lack of views on all these reports. But I've just realised now, at the end of the day, I just need to make like the titles more engaging, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? You've got to. I mean, I'm so against clickbait and all that shit, but sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet and get your thumbnails as eye-catching and titles as eye-catching as possible, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. So, even so, whatever. Nice to finally talk about San Pedro again. I know people have really been wanting me to talk about mescaline a lot more. Obviously, San Pedro itself is this cactus that's native to Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Ecuador, Peru, and it actually contains mescaline and other psychoactive alkaloids. So the experience itself of just taking the cactus can be a lot different than just taking pure mescaline itself. I've done a lot of other mescaline reports. I've only done a few San Pedro reports, so it's nice to get back on it again. So just to briefly go over it, the chemistry of San Pedro is 93.5% water by weight and about 0.025% plus of mescaline. Trace amount of tyramine, 0.01% of 3-methoxytyramine by dry weight. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these. Trace amounts of hordenine, 3,4-dimethoxyphenethylamine, 3-hydroxy-4,5-dimethoxyphenethylamine, 4-hydroxy-3,5-dimethoxyphenethylamine, anilhonidine, and anahylanine. Jesus, I bet I absolutely butchered that. Please let me know how bad that was. I bet that's fucking hilarious for any chemists out there. So that's interesting that, unlike mescaline, which is like you just pure taking mescaline itself, this has a lot of other traces of different chemicals in it, and a lot of the time eating just the flesh of a plant like a cactus, it does come with a bit of nausea. Say like when you have mushrooms, it comes with a bit of nausea as well. One of the best ways to mitigate this is to consume ginger and also have an empty stomach as well, because the ginger is known as a great nausea blocker. And also smoking cannabis can be for some people, but for me, definitely not. It fucking pure wigs me out. If I have cannabis before I consume like mushrooms, but maybe that's just the mental space it puts me in, because I'm just fucking loopy me. This was really beautiful towards the end. One of my favourite aspects of this is something I want to touch more on in the future is the sexual aspect to psychedelics. If you've ever had sex on psychedelics, you know just how transcendental and beautiful that experience is. Like, fuck me, if you've had good orgasms, you've never had an orgasm like when you're on some form of psychedelic, especially the more entheogenic substances, the ones that put you more in tune with nature and your spirit rather than the sort of cosmic, sort of out there ones, which it's also, you can also have a pretty good time on them as well, but you definitely sort of feel it, the connection, the spiritual connection, a lot more when you take sort of like the natural psychedelics. They've definitely got a different aura, a different vibe to them, and making love on that is actually, it's like, holy shit, you just completely let go, because again, it's an ego dissolver. You're less in your head, because a lot of the time, possibly people can relate to this, when you're having sex sometimes, especially if you're an overthinker, ADHD-minded person, you can be stuck in your own mind, but letting go, fully letting go in that experience is just so unbelievably transcendent. It's not just a transactional affair. Obviously, there is a transaction involved in intercourse, but it becomes about both people just want to please the other. It's not like a selfish thing, because sex can be a selfish thing. And yeah, the beauty of, say, psychedelic sex is that the utter surrender to each other and just embracing each other in one of the most beautiful acts known to man, really, isn't it? Like, sex is an extremely powerful thing. I know many of you probably know about tantric sex and stuff like that. It gets pretty fucking deep, you know. What else can I say about this? Yeah, another great thing is I love all these reports that go outside. Obviously, yeah, there was a bit of paranoia about the person. Oh my god, yeah, I need to go home. She wanted to. I assume it was a she. It could have been. They could have been gay. I don't know. Fucking. That's just me assuming. I assume the person writing it was female, because I got a lot more of a feminine vibe in the writing. What's really interesting about, say, when a woman writes a trip report as opposed to a man, and this isn't me. This is just a generalization. I think it's very common knowledge at the end of the day that a man's mind, the male and female mind, is very different, or the masculine and feminine energies, or if you want to compare it on a chemical term, testosterone versus estrogen, are very different in the way it governs a person's consciousness. Feminine people tend to be a lot more empathetic, emotional, and sort of group oriented. I think this is why women just love partying and going out, and that they definitely buzz off it a lot more than men. And they just sort of go out for the sake of like buzzing off their mates, and like the man is very logical, like, I am going out tonight because I need to pursue a partner or get fucked or do all this. I might not be making any sense right now. It's just my perspective of life. Tell me if I'm being stupid, but yeah, the man is a lot more autonomous, sort of appreciates his sort of like solitude more, and is a lot more logical, headstrong, etc. And both of these qualities are unique to the male and feminine sort of perspective, and they're both beautiful in a way. And that's sort of why I feel like one of the deeper points of life is to combine the masculine and feminine energies. And if you're in a relationship with another person, having that balance of feminine and masculine, that nice, beautiful equilibrium, can make for some of the greatest, most conscious relationships of all time. So, yeah, going back to what I was saying before I went on a tangent, of course, is the person was saying, oh, she started skitzing out. She's like, oh my god, I'm not home. What am I gonna do? But then she realised the concept of home is literally all in your head. Like, Earth is home, isn't it? Like, how can you probably feel more at home walking through nature and taking it all in. It's so spiritual. It's so deep. It touches the core of you when you're, even if out in just sober, walking out in nature. Like every time I go and take dog for a walk, I'm just basking in it. I'm so happy. I just love being around nature so much. It's very it's surprising when you meet someone who's so numb to nature and numb to going out and just taking in stuff like that. I feel like there's something lacking in them people, which is not my judgment at all. I just think it's sad, and it's something that can definitely be honed in. I mean, we are literally of nature. We're designed for it. And yeah, I do feel her dismay at the parasitic nature of human beings, and how we just I mean, the nature of human beings is there's so many of us, isn't there? Like, by design, the ego and just human nature in general, like there's fucking billions of us. We do sort of have to leech off the earth, and yeah, we will pay the karma, the consequences, like we are doing now. If say, like, I don't know, global warming, whether you believe in that or not, fuck me, I cannot be asked debating about that. But I guarantee someone in the comments will be like, actually, Vivek, did you know that global warming is completely fake? And it's like, mate, I don't care if it's true or not. Like, there's obviously, even if you do believe in global warming or not, we're clearly destroying like rainforests and habitats and etc. And yeah, it's sad, but sometimes you've just got to accept these things in the bigger picture meta sense. Sometimes you just got to accept the suffering of reality, and in the bigger picture, hopefully we'll sort it out. But whoa, this is probably the biggest like tangent I've ever been on in any of these commentaries. I'm just absolutely going off right now for some reason. But yeah, really beautiful experience. I'd absolutely love to take mescaline, to be honest. I really need to just sort of I really want to expand like my psychedelic palette, instead of doing the sort of generic go-to DMT, LSD, mushrooms, 2CB, which is just all so easily accessible. But yeah, it's pretty hard where I live to get access to any of these things in a reasonable manner. But yeah, maybe one day I'd love to go to one of them retreats and do it. Maybe that go in the future. That'd be a perfect vlog. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'd love to do more San Pedro and mescaline reports in the future. Hope you're all doing well and had a serious fucking time over the weekend. And if you didn't, then, well, I don't know, fucking go to bed or something. Right, see you later.